Hello and good day. This is More Talk, episode 13.B from the Moorish directory, and I'm your host, Jonathan Bay. What we're doing today is very different. We are beginning an actual curriculum on Moorish science. The curriculum that we're setting up is a pathway, if you would, into a better understanding for those who wish to become actual practitioners of true Moorish science. This is not a competition with respect to those teachings that might be afforded you in the Moorish Science Temple of America, which was founded by Noble Drew Ali, our prophet, our community's prophet. When I say our community, I'm talking about the Aboriginal and Indigenous Paleo-American, those which have been here on this land since the time of dust. No, it is simply a manner by which one can receive the correct information in the correct manner or in a correct manner, to ingest at correct intervals, and will afford you a means and mechanism by which to obtain information that you might be not able to obtain otherwise. For those who are very serious and excel in this particular course, it will give entrance to the Moorish Directory's Adept Chamber. Now, the Adept Chamber is not a secret club. It's simply an area for very interested, serious students who are interested in going a bit further in their understanding and participating in the methodologies within the practice. Now, when we're saying practice, you can consider that practice similar to a law practice or a dental practice or any of the other higher orders in which actual degrees need to be obtained in order to be recognized as adept in your particular art. Everything scientific operates off of methodologies. Moorish science is no different. As a matter of fact, with it being the cornerstone of all sciences, in that it deals with what some would call the occult areas of science, or metaphysics. Meta simply meaning not yet known by normal physics of this day. These particular teachings are ancient in nature. There's nothing new under the sun. Even back during the day of Yeshua, the one that we would call Jesus the Christ in Christianity, as well as in more modern day, our prophet Noble Drew Ali also told us, as did that ancient Melchizedek priest, rabbi, teacher, Yeshua, that there were no more secret societies. The shroud of secrecy has been lifted. This is regarding a very important topic, which leads toward the uplifting of fallen humanity. Now recognize I said the fallen humanity. I didn't say fallen Moorish community. This is not about our uplifting. This is about the uplifting of humanity, mankind. This information is not information that we're concerned about others getting a hold of. Believe me, there are practitioners, dark art wizards, who understand this very well. Matter of fact, they have been applying it, our own Moorish science, against not just us, but mankind. So, this is not something that we're concerned about others getting a hold of and doing mischievous things with it. Those things are already being done, and have been done to quite an expert degree. And we'll explain that. Matter of fact, I'll give you one example. 9/11. That was a dark arts ritual, a bloodletting of a proportion not seen before on this planet, wherein there was an actual changing of the clock of destiny. We'll explain that. Here's an example. If you take a loaded weapon, a gun, and point it towards a mother's child, that mother will instinctively do everything within her power to put herself between harm's way and her baby. Without thinking, takes no thought, automatically. That's because the degree and depth of love that that mother has for her child is not simply an emotion. It is a dimension, an actual physical dimension in which the mother phases into reactionarily to prevent harm of her child. Even, however, if the mother were to have the opportunity to think for a moment, of course, she would do the same without hesitation. And that's because in this dimension we call love, love cannot be overcome by any other energy. It is the most powerful energy in existence. And in that dimension, fear cannot exist. Now, when you ask the average person, what is the opposite of love? They will say hate, but it isn't. I'll explain. When that mother goes to protect her child and phases into the dimension of love, she is now in an area in which fear cannot exist. A greater manifestation of fear would be horror, a horrific event. And even deeper still, terrified. You've heard people say he was frozen in terror. That is because those emotions are very thick and viscous. In other words, if you think about a wave of light, which is intense, like a laser beam, can cut through wrought iron metal like a hot knife through butter. That's how intense light of love is. Whereas fear, horror, the state of being terrified, is very slow. That's why we call it viscous, thick like honey, paralyzing. And what occurred was that they purposefully, these dark arts wizards, which utilized our own Moorish science to implement a shifting of the hive mind of mankind, to change the trajectory of what was to come, which was the uplifting of fallen humanity, and still is. It's only been shifted, not eradicated. And all that was needed to occur was, by way of this horrific act occurring, which they had already previously told us would occur within 3 to 4 years prior to the publication of their manifesto, wherein they stated that it would take something of a Pearl Harbor-like event here on domestic soil, even suggesting flying planes into buildings, that these architects decided it would be a means by which to create a new American century. All that was required was to take the hive mind of men, mankind, and shift it left or right by 1 or 2 degrees of its natural trajectory, which would have kept it on the timeline toward the uplifting of fallen humanity. Now, the uplifting of fallen humanity is a paradigm shift, the evolution of the consciousness of mankind from where we are now, mentally and consciously, into what we will be evolving into. Now, when you think of Adam and Eve, Adam, of course, is dealing with the physical Adam, and Eve represents the evolution of the physical state. Now, this physical state is in the objective realm. However, all things which occur come out of what's called the subjective realm of reality. And that subjective realm of reality is where our consciousness resides, some call spirit or prana. And this chi, scientifically, is accessible, and it is the arena in which one creates or manifests their destinies. So as I stated, this was just a quick example, just to identify some of the areas that we'll be going into, but without getting too far off in elaborating on these subjects, which, as I said, we'll go much deeper into. We're going to start with the 101s, the basics, and take you through the steps and methodologies. Now, in ancient times, we had been given such sayings as, "Seek and ye shall find, man, know thyself." Well, there was a time where our children, when being taught about themselves, began at the very basic level, understanding the rudimentary aspects of their physical personage first, which would mean what they were made of, before we even get to talking about the circulatory system or the olfactory systems or any of the other portions of that particular cosmetology, the human body. We first have to look at the elements in which we are made up of. And those elements, the gold, uranium, the platinum, the silver, everything on the periodic table, which is the dust of the earth for all intent and purpose, that we are comprised of in our physical geometry. Those elements are the reason why they called it elementary school, because it began with the elements. And then once learning about those weights, the atomic structure, the protons and neutrons, the makeup of man's biological cornerstones, we as being creatures who perceive ourselves to be in a physical form made of carbon. Matter of fact, if you were to take a carbon atom and look at it underneath an electron microscope, it will reveal to you what we call the Star of David, hex alpha. But we're not going to be talking about those chemical bonds and molecular structures in that way. You can take a chemistry course for that. We're going to be talking about things on a more exoteric level, as well as sympathetically, the esoteric level, as we need to relate to those things which we find in prophecy as well as in the circles of the Holy Quran, to unfold that particular rose and to help aid and abet your understanding or considerations relative to the material that's going to be presented. So, without further ado, let's begin.